was a wonderful person who she really was responsible for her character.
For decades, Alda and Loretta Swit were more than just co-stars. They were family. Their on-screen chemistry in MASH made them television legends, bringing warmth, wit, and heart to a show that defined an entire era. Fans loved them as Hawkeye and Hot Lips, two people who clashed, cared, and somehow always found each other in the chaos of war. But behind the camera, their friendship ran even deeper, built on trust, loyalty, and shared battles both personal and professional. So when news broke that Loretta Swit had passed away, Alda's world changed forever. The woman who had stood beside him through 11 unforgettable seasons, through laughter and heartbreak, was gone. For days,
News, Hollywood mourning the loss of beloved actress Loretta Swit, passed away today at her home in New York City.
Alda stayed silent. No interviews, no statements, just quiet grief. Fans grew worried. Some wondered if the loss had hit him harder than anyone realized. And then, when he finally spoke, it wasn't what anyone expected. His words were raw, emotional, and shockingly honest. What he revealed about their final days together, and what he confessed about the guilt he's carried for decades, left fans in tears. Because Alda didn't just lose a co-star, he lost a part of his soul. And in breaking his silence, he finally exposed the painful truth about the bond he and Loretta shared, and the heartbreaking promise he could never keep. When MASH first aired in 1972, no one could have predicted the impact it would have on television, or on the lives of those who brought it to life. The show began as a simple adaptation of a war comedy film, but soon evolved into one of the most emotionally powerful series in TV history. At its heart was Alda, the quick-witted yet deeply sensitive Hawkeye Pierce, and Loretta Swit, the tough-as-nails but secretly tender Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. Over the course of 11 seasons, the two developed a rare kind of chemistry, the kind that transcended acting. Their scenes together were filled with sharp humor but also quiet vulnerability. Fans could feel it. Something real was happening between them, something deeper than script lines and stage direction. And as the years passed, Alda and Swit's friendship grew into one of mutual respect, unspoken affection, and shared purpose. Off-camera, the cast of MASH became a tight-knit family. They spent long hours on set, often filming emotionally draining scenes that blurred the line between fiction and reality. "We were together more than we were with our own families," Alda once said in an interview. "You can't fake that kind of bond." But that bond wasn't without its pain. Loretta Swit was one of the few cast members who never left the show, even when others did. She watched as friends like Wayne Rogers, McLean Stevenson, and Larry Linville moved on, often due to burnout, creative differences, or personal struggles. Each goodbye chipped away at the spirit of the Masha family, and Loretta carried those losses quietly. Alda, meanwhile, bore the burden of leadership. As both actor and, later, writer and director for the show, he carried immense pressure to keep MASH meaningful, to balance humor with heartbreak, laughter with loss. The weight of portraying human suffering through the lens of comedy wasn't easy, and it often took a toll on his mental health. Through it all, Loretta remained his anchor. Friends recall how she'd bring coffee to the set at dawn, check on Alan during long shooting days, and offer gentle reassurance when scenes became emotionally heavy. Loretta was the heart of MASH, Alda once said. She reminded us why we were telling those stories in the first place, even after the show ended in 1983 with its record-breaking finale. Still one of the most watched TV episodes of all time. Their friendship endured. They kept in touch for decades, exchanging letters, calls, and birthday wishes. When Alda was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease years later, Loretta was among the first to reach out. "She was like a sister," Alda said. "She always knew what to say, even when words failed everyone else. But behind the smiles and fond memories, there were regrets, unspoken words, and missed chances. In private, Alda once admitted that he often wished he had told Loretta how much her friendship had meant to him while they were still working together. The intensity of the show, the chaos of fame, and the passing years all blurred those moments away. So when Loretta Swit's health began to decline, Alda reportedly grew distant, not out of neglect, but fear. He had already begun to struggle physically and emotionally due to his illness, and the thought of losing her was too painful to face. When the news of Loretta's death broke, Alda went silent. Friends said he was devastated, refusing interviews and even declining to appear at early memorial events. Those closest to him said he would sit for hours rewatching old MASH episodes, pausing whenever Loretta appeared on screen. It was like he was reliving their entire friendship through those scenes, one family friend shared. He couldn't let go. Days later, Alda finally decided to speak, and when he did, his words revealed a heartbreak that had been building for years. Alda and Loretta Swit weren't just co-stars. They were the emotional core of MASH. Their on-screen chemistry as Hawkeye and Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan was magnetic, but what made it truly special was the genuine affection they shared off-screen. Unlike many TV partnerships, theirs was rooted in respect, admiration, and deep understanding. They knew each other's rhythms so well that many of their most touching moments on screen came from unscripted emotion. When Alda was asked about working with Loretta during the peak of the show's success, he often said that she had an energy no one else could match. She was bold, compassionate, and fearless, both in her acting and her beliefs. He credited her with bringing humanity to a role that could have easily been one-dimensional. Without her, MASH wouldn't have had its heart. Behind the scenes, their bond grew even stronger. They spent countless hours together discussing scripts, rewriting lines to make scenes feel more authentic, and even comforting each other through personal struggles. When Loretta went through tough times, Alda was often the first person to call or check in. And when Alda's life took difficult turns, Loretta was always there with her trademark warmth and humor. Crew members recall how their laughter would echo across the set. They teased each other like siblings, yet always protected one another from the pressures of fame. Loretta once said that Alan was the only man in Hollywood she could completely trust, and that trust lasted more than 5 decades. So when news of Loretta Swit's passing broke, it hit Alda harder than almost anyone else. For him, it wasn't just the loss of a co-star, it was the loss of a lifelong friend, a creative partner, and a piece of his own history. In the days that followed her death, Alda remained silent. Fans flooded his social media, leaving condolences and asking if he would share a few words. But Alan, usually open and eloquent, chose to stay quiet, until he finally broke his silence with a message that left everyone heartbroken. Alda's words weren't long or poetic. They were simple, raw, and full of love. He wrote, "Loretta wasn't just part of my career. She was part of my life. We grew together, laughed until we cried, and saw each other through everything. I can't imagine a world without her." Those few sentences spoke volumes. Fans could feel the grief in his words, and it became clear that Loretta's death had left a void that could never be filled. What made their friendship so remarkable was that it outlasted Hollywood's fleeting nature. Even decades after MASH ended, Alan and Loretta kept in touch regularly. They appeared at reunions, sent each other birthday messages, and often reminisced about the show that changed both their lives. Loretta would often say that she still called Alan Hawkeye, and he'd reply, "Only if you still answer to Hot Lips." Their humor never faded, even as time and age caught up with them. That playful banter was their way of holding on to the magic of MASH, a show that not only made them legends, but also bound their hearts forever. Alan's Final tribute to Loretta was a reminder of how rare, genuine friendship is in Hollywood. He didn't dwell on fame or awards. He focused on the little things. How she made everyone laugh on set. How she could light up a room just by walking in. And how she made MASH something truly unforgettable. But behind those heartfelt words, friends say Allen has been deeply shaken. Losing Loretta reminded him of the fragile nature of time. Many of their co-stars, like Harry Morgan and Wayne Rogers, were already gone, and now another piece of that golden era has vanished. For Alda, it's not just grief. It's a haunting realization that an era of friendship, laughter, and shared history is slowly fading away. After Loretta Swit's death, those close to Alda began to notice a quiet change in him. Though he continued to smile during interviews and engage with fans online, there was a heaviness in his tone, a sorrow that couldn't be hidden. For decades, Alda had been the embodiment of optimism, humor, and resilience. But losing Loretta was like losing a part of himself, a piece of his soul that had been intertwined with hers since the early 1970s. In private, Allen reportedly became reflective, spending more time at home with his wife, Arlene, and his family. Friends say he would often bring up old stories from MASH, especially moments involving Loretta. He'd recall how she used to brighten the set with her laughter, how she never hesitated to challenge a director's note if she felt it didn't honor her character, and how the two of them would sometimes rewrite dialogue on the spot to make it more meaningful. Those memories became both a source of comfort and pain. Loretta wasn't just a co-worker. She was a symbol of an era when television was about authenticity and heart. For Alda, losing her meant closing the final chapter on something sacred. In interviews after her passing, Alda admitted that aging comes with a constant sense of loss. He said, "When you get older, people start leaving. You keep them alive by remembering who they were, what they meant, and how they made you feel." That quiet reflection spoke volumes. He didn't mention Loretta by name, but everyone knew who he was talking about. Alda has always been known for his deep empathy. During his years on MASH, he wasn't just the star, he was a mentor and advocate for his fellow cast members. Loretta often credited him with fighting for stronger, more complex roles for women on the show. When others saw Margaret Houlihan as a stereotype, Alda saw her potential as a layered, intelligent, and vulnerable woman. And Loretta rose to that challenge. Their partnership reshaped television storytelling. They proved that humor and humanity could coexist even in the harsh backdrop of war. The way they worked together blurred the line between performance and reality. And that bond, forged under bright studio lights and long shooting hours, transformed into something everlasting. After Loretta's death, Alda's followers noticed he stopped posting as frequently. His last public appearance, a charity event for Parkinson's research, showed a man still strong in spirit, but clearly carrying the weight of loss. He spoke about kindness, connection, and gratitude, values that both he and Loretta championed throughout their lives. Those who have known Alda for years say he's channeling his grief into reflection rather than retreat. He's writing, reminiscing, and spending time revisiting the legacy of MASH. But even in that process, the pain lingers. Losing Loretta wasn't just saying goodbye to a friend. It was like watching an entire lifetime of memories fade into the distance. Loretta once described Allen as her safe place in Hollywood. She said he was one of the few people who made her feel seen and heard in an industry that often reduced women to stereotypes. That kind of emotional bond doesn't vanish. It leaves a mark that time can't erase. Fans around the world felt Allen's pain as if it were their own. They grew up watching Hawkeye and Hot Lips bicker, laugh, and love in their own complicated way. Seeing Allen grieve was like watching a beloved chapter of television history come to an end. Social media was flooded with tributes, fan art, and heartfelt messages celebrating their friendship. But for Alda, the loss is deeply personal. Friends say he still keeps photos of Loretta on his study wall, behind-the-scenes snapshots from the MASH set, smiling moments frozen in time. When asked once what he missed most about the show, he replied softly, "The people, always the people. And among all those people, Loretta Swit will always stand out as the one who truly understood him. The laughter they shared, the tears they shed, and the art they created together will forever define both of their legacies." Alan Alda may be nearing the twilight of his life, but the lessons he learned from Loretta and the love they shared as friends continue to guide him. Even in grief, there's gratitude, and even in silence, there's the echo of a bond that time will never erase. In the months that followed Loretta Swit's passing, Alan Alda seemed to move through life with quiet grace, but those who knew him best could see that the loss had taken a toll. At 89, Alda was already confronting his own health challenges, including Parkinson's disease, which he first revealed publicly years ago. Yet, even as his body began to betray him, his mind and heart remained deeply connected to the memories of his friend and co-star. Friends say that after Loretta's death, Alan began to reflect even more on mortality, on what it means to outlive nearly everyone from a golden era that once defined his life. He'd often say that growing old isn't about the wrinkles or aches. It's about watching the people you love slowly disappear. Losing Loretta wasn't just another reminder of time. It was a personal heartbreak that reopened every wound left by the passing of his MASH family. At home, he reportedly spends quiet mornings looking through old photos, cast reunions, behind-the-scenes snapshots, and candid shots of Loretta's laughter that once filled the set. He's said to pause often, smiling softly, as if hearing her voice echo through the years. Those who visited him describe a man who finds strength in remembrance, not regret. Alda has always believed that grief is the price of love, and in many ways, his loss became his greatest lesson. He's spoken in interviews about how we carry people with us, not in the sadness of their absence, but in the warmth of what they gave us. That philosophy has shaped his later years, but Loretta's passing hit differently. She wasn't just a colleague, she was family. Their last conversation, according to reports, happened just weeks before she died. Even as Loretta's health was declining, she and Alan spoke about how proud they were of the legacy they'd built together. They reminisced about the laughter that echoed through the MASH set, the emotional scenes that made history, and the bond that had somehow survived decades of change. When the call ended, neither of them knew it would be their final goodbye. When Alda finally addressed her passing publicly, fans could sense the pain behind his calm words. His tribute wasn't about fame or nostalgia, it was about gratitude. He said, "I was lucky to know her, to work with her, to laugh with her. She made the hard days easy and the good days unforgettable." Those words resonated deeply with millions who had grown up watching them together. For fans, it wasn't just a farewell, it was the closing of a chapter in television history. Behind that calm strength, however, Alda's health has been quietly declining. Parkinson's disease has made simple tasks more difficult, and though he continues to advocate for research and awareness, he's slowed down considerably. Yet, through it all, he's remained a beacon of resilience. He still records his podcast, writes, and occasionally makes public appearances, though always with the same warmth and humor that made him beloved. Those close to him say he often talks about Loretta in the present tense, as if she's still part of his daily life. To him, she never truly left. Her voice, her laughter, and her strength live on in the stories he tells and the memories he keeps alive. It's as though every word he speaks now carries a piece of her spirit. In a recent reflection, Alda shared a simple truth. We don't lose the people we love. We become the keepers of their stories. It was his way of saying that Loretta's legacy and the legacy of MASH will never fade as long as people continue to remember what they stood for: compassion, humor, and humanity in the face of hardship. Alan Alda knows that time is fragile and that his own journey is nearing its final act. But he also knows that what he and Loretta built together will outlive them both. Their friendship was one of the rarest in Hollywood, rooted not in fame, but in genuine care, trust, and respect. As fans continue to revisit old MASH episodes, they see more than just two characters on screen. They see two souls who shared something real. And now, even as Alan Alda faces his own battles, he carries with him the laughter, the love, and the light that Loretta Swit brought into his life. Her absence may have left him heartbroken, but her memory continues to guide him through every remaining day. Because some bonds, like the one between Alan Alda and Loretta Swit, aren't broken by death. They simply live on in silence, in legacy, and in the hearts of those who remember.